If you've ever filed any insurance claim in any walk of life, you know that we live in a dirty world of trickery, but not all trickery has to be dirty. So today's lesson is about tricking beginners into actually learning a lot of like the fundamental stuff on guitar that maybe you've missed if you're just learning how to play songs and stuff, which isn't a bad way, but not a bad way to learn. But once you kind of start adding a little bit of music theory, your playing gets a lot better, and there's a very easy way to trick yourself into doing it. So we're going to do a few examples, but the first one is going to be using open chords in the people's key, the key of G, using the 3 major chords that are in this key. There's only 3 technically major chords in any key, and in the key of G it's a G major, a C major, and a D major. Okay? Also known as the 1-4-5 in the key. The way we get those numbers, which is really important, is by going through the notes in this key. Again, it's not a total dirty trick because we're gonna talk about the notes in the key. So even if you're not interested, stick with me for a second. It's going to make a lot of sense by the end of this video. The notes in the key of G are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And the trickery is you're not going to have to remember those are the names of the notes, but you're going to learn all those notes in a really easy way, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes in this key. Any of those notes become a chord. The 1st, 4th, and 5th ones in a key become major chords. It's how we get a C major, a G major, and a D major. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take these open chords and we're going to start adding cool little things to each of the chords to make it sound a little bit more interesting. So something that might sound like this. Okay, so there's like a lot of different things going on in there, hammer-ons and pull-offs and maybe some slides. So a lot of techniques, but none of them are that difficult. So we're going to start with G major right here. Middle finger 3rd fret on the E string, pointer finger 2nd fret on the A string, open, open, 3rd fret on the B string, and then you can get the 3rd fret on the high E string if you want. You don't have to, but the lowest 5 strings is what we're going to be thinking of for this chord. Okay, now there are 3 different notes in this chord. It's called a triad, right? So even though you're playing 5 strings, there's only 3 different notes. So you've got a G on the E string, a B on the A string, open D, open G, and another D on the B string, right? So G, B, and D, any combination gives you a G major triad. What we're going to start doing is we're going to add a couple more, only 2 more notes to this to get this little scale. Okay? 3 on the E string, open 2 on the A string, open 2 on the D string, and then open G. Alright, so it's a 5-note scale. You've probably heard about this in some kind of guitar learning thing as being the pentatonic scale. Pentatonic scale just means a 5-note scale. It doesn't have to be a certain group of notes or whatever because each chord is going to have its own pentatonic scale that we're going to use with this. Don't even think about it. Just erase the word pentatonic from your mind. Just know that those are the 5 notes that go with this little chord. And then you can do cool stuff with it, but I'm just playing a G chord, and then I'm inflecting that chord with these notes, which are very easy to remember, okay? 3, open 2, open 2, open, all right? In fact, that's a song right there. Again, so many classic stuff have come from just using these notes, but playing them within the context of a chord is how we're going to trick you into remembering that these notes go together with other chords in this key. Alright? So we've got this open version, and now what I'm doing is I'm playing the chord, and then I'm hammering on within the strumming of that chord. And you can almost do it at randomly. Now if you do it in like a timing interval that makes sense, you know, you can see that it doesn't really sound like I'm doing anything too fancy. I'm just getting a little more action on that chord, and those come from notes that are helping it out. Now, I think it's also very valuable to learn how to get these notes throughout the neck, because then we can make movable shapes. And essentially what you're doing is you're tricking yourself into learning the fretboard roadmap of anything starting on a root note, okay? So the root note in a G major chord is a G. This is the 3rd fret here. And we can play these same notes by going like this. 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. All right? Do it forward and backward. Okay? So we're going to do that for each of those 3 chords now. G major, C major, and D major. But one thing that you can't trick is good tone on your guitar, and the best way to get that is by putting Elixir strings on your guitar. This video is sponsored by Elixir strings. If you haven't tried these yet, you got to do it. Affiliate link is in the description. By far the best strings I've ever played. I've played exclusively Elixirs for so long, ever since the first time I played Elixirs, just because they feel easier on your hands, they last longer, you don't have to change your guitar as much, change your guitar strings as much, and yeah, Elixir's the best. So if you haven't gotten Elixir strings, please just do it. You can thank me later. And if you have gotten Elixir strings before, it's time to get some more, because you can use my affiliate link and help support this channel. So thank you so much to Elixir strings. I always kind of recommend the nano webs, like the phosphor bronze ones. 8020s are my favorite, but you really can't go wrong. So experiment with different ones. All right? So now we can do the same thing on that C chord, the 4 chord, the 1 chord in G to the 4 chord in G, which is C major. All right, now we can do pretty much the same thing as this. Okay, with the C chord. 3A, open 2, open 2, 1B. See how that works? So it's a little different. But essentially it's the same idea, okay? Now, really quick, this is where it starts to, the trickery starts to reveal itself. Because if we name these notes in G, G, A, B, D, E, G. All right, G, A, B, D, E, G. It's like, it's harder to remember those 5 because it's not in a line. It's not linear like the alphabet works, okay? So, like we said before, the notes in the key of G are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp in G. All right, so there's 1 sharp in there, but other than that, it's just a linear, just the alphabet, the musical alphabet, starting on G, jumping back to A, then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, just F having a sharp, right? But when you do it as G, A, B, D, E, G, we're leaving out 2 notes that are very important in this key. And that's the weakness of the pentatonic scale, only using 5 of 7 notes, but also the genius in using a pentatonic scale of a different chord in this key, because now the bigger picture starts to come together. So when we play the C major chord, 3A, 2D, open G, 1B, but we do this, 3A, open 2 on the next string, and then 1, C, D, E, G, A, C. Already we're adding a C note to the notes we already played in G's position, right? G, A, B, D. We skipped the C in that first kind of exercise. So now, by doing the same pattern, but starting on C, which again, G, A, B, C, is the 4th note in this key, now the bigger picture is coming together just by tricking ourselves into doing the same thing, starting on another note. So now if we were to take all of the notes, but just adding C's in here, we get G, A, B, C, D, E, G. Okay? So, we can just play around with that C chord. To G. Or the chord here, starting on a C, and then you can make a power chord or a full bar chord if you want, where it's like 3A, 5, 5, 5, and then 3 on the high E string. But again, that could be a little more advanced, but thinking about this as a root note, and then the same shape, G, A, B, D, E, G, C, D, E, G, A, C. All right? So you see how that pattern is a lot easier to see once you just have it kind of grow off of a root note. All right, so the next chord is going to be the 5 chord in the key of G. G, A, B, C, D. D major right here. 2 on the high string, 3 on the B string, 2 on the G string, open on the D string. Okay, so now this is higher up on the higher strings instead of reading on the lower ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to remember that the root note of this chord is a D, so it's open. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go open, 2, 4, 2, 4, 3, like that. D, E, F sharp, A, B, D, okay? So what we've done here, the new player in the game, is that F sharp, that 4th fret on the D string. So because that same pattern, starting on a D or the 5th fret of the A string and then doing the 5, 7, 9, 5, or 7, 9, 5, like that. Same as with C. Here's C's. Just start on the 5th fret. I did the same shape, but because I'm starting at a different beginning location, I've introduced F sharp into our group of notes. And now all of a sudden, we have a full scale. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay? So, that's the major scale. All 7 notes, you can do so much with that all throughout the neck. But you're thinking chord specifically, which is how music is made anyway, so it's a good way to start thinking about it, right? G, C, D, and all the cool things that come with it. So I wish I would have started learning this way, because I remember I learned chords as its own thing and scales as its own separate thing. And it wasn't until I got like decent that I even saw them as like, well, these aren't separate things. These are the same thing. Just my mind was separating them on the actual fretboard in like reality. So one way to do it is like, oh, I could just learn all the notes in this key just right here and be like, all right, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, 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 D. And then just kind of drill like an exercise, which is cool, and that's how I did it. But I feel like I would have progressed faster if I thought about notes relative to what they could do for you in a chord in a song, right? So we're gonna do 2 examples to kind of play this video out, where I'm just playing C, G, and D, and staying in the open progression. And I'll try to play it where you can clearly tell in the playing I'm on a G chord and I'm doing G chord scale, pentatonic scale stuff, and then I'm switching to a C chord, D chord, etc. Right? So we have like a G, right? It's very G, still on that G, then to C, to G. And you know, this is like a pretty traditional way to play it. And then D, C, G. Right? And that's kind of utilizing all of the notes in that key, but just doing it G, C, and D. Now, we could do the same thing with the bar chords and just move them through the neck. And that's something that I feel like actually is more helpful, because you're not relying on open chord positions to help you. So we'll do it first in that same key, just with bar chords instead of open chords. So you can hear it's the same thing, then we'll move it to a different key, right? So I've got G. Still on G. C. G. D. C. To G. Alright, and that was using just the lower 3 strings kind of make cool little lines in between. So let's move it just 2 frets higher. Now let's do the whole thing in A, where I can use bar chords still if I want, but because I think A is one of the prettiest keys that you could do, because you can leave like the B string open and the high E string open on top, and then it's actually easier to play because you don't have to bar all 6 strings. You can leave those top notes open, and then maybe even play like kind of smaller versions of these full bar chords. So like for the A major, maybe instead of doing a root note here, I'm still thinking of it as A, but I'll play like the E major shape like this, right? So now I just have 7A, 7D, and 6G. And it's a much different vibe, right, than here, but I can still utilize what I learned from that shape to be like, all right, well, I know around here I have these notes that I can use. Again, 5, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7. And I can even move around like that because I know that both these are in there, so I can double stop through these, right? And then maybe I want to go to the 4 chord, which again is just the 7th fret, D, G, and B string. And it's like, all right, well, this is just a different way of kind of combining what's cool about this key with these kind of, you know, linear patterns. So yeah, I hope that makes sense, but I think that's kind of like an interesting way to like learn differently instead of thinking about them as separate things and just tricking yourself into learning all the notes all over the fretboard, which is not really that bad once you kind of see them as patterns off of a chord or something like that. So thanks for checking it out. Thank you again to Elixir Strings for sponsoring the video. Best stuff in the world. Plus the people at Elixir are like, they're just like my people. So thanks so much to them for sponsoring the video. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, or the website. I'll talk to you all soon.